This morning, we are speaking about the foreign exchange crisis, as some might like to refer to it. And this morning, to have that conversation with me, I am speaking up to the Tobago Business Chamber, and we are chatting with Mr. Martin George, Attorney Martin George. Good morning and welcome.
And good morning to all your viewers. And I hope it's a wonderful day for everyone.
Excellent. Now, some persons don't want to refer to it as a crisis simply for the fact that there is a segment of the population who have been having this same issue in accessing Forex currency for a long time. While some persons have been having more privilege to have access through means of business and stuff like that. But now it has become more apparent because a larger demographic is being affected by this Forex shortage or crisis, as you refer to it as. Can you talk to us about what we're seeing here now, and do you deem this to be unprecedented?
Well, I mean, the thing is, to say that it's unprecedented is not really accurate because it's actually like a slow moving crisis that we've been watching and witnessing for years now in Trinidad and Tobago. And basically, it's almost like you're standing on the tracks, the train is coming down on the tracks, and you're not slowing down or stopping the train, and you're not moving out of the way. So, it's like inevitable that it will happen because you look at this scenario. The reality is our foreign exchange earnings have been declining rapidly year after year after year for the last 10 years or so. Our earnings from oil and gas have reduced. Our earnings from other non oil exports have not matched the shortfall that we've experienced. The oil and gas companies are paying less in revenues and taxes. In fact, I saw recently where one of them suggested that they're going to start paying their earnings in TT dollars rather than in US currency, even though they are earning it in US currency. And therefore, it should be remitted to the country in US currency. So the thing is, our reserves of foreign exchange have been under threat and under assault for years now, and we have done nothing as a nation, nothing as a country to change that tide. So, therefore, it is not surprising that we are facing this debacle now. And you ask yourself, what have our leaders done to avert this situation or to avert this crisis? That's what good leadership and management is supposed to be about. So therefore, central government has to take the responsibility and, along with that, the blame for not dealing with this in a timely manner to ensure that we don't face this type of crisis. You look at all the other small islands of the Caribbean. You go to St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, Barbados. None of them have a foreign exchange crisis like what we have. Clearly they are doing something different from us that we are not doing. And they don't have the oil and gas reserves that we have. They haven't been piggybacking on that US dollar inflow from an energy economy. So therefore, what are we doing? I mean, in fact, I saw recently where some folks from Guyana were basically laughing at us. Of course, I mean, they have it in their craw, that they've been so, I guess maybe minimized and marginalized over the years that now that they are riding high on their oil and gas reserves, they're basically rubbing it in our faces to say, well, look, they have no trouble accessing US dollars in Guyana. So I mean, the reality is that this is not a surprising, or as you describe it, unprecedented scenario, because it is quite clear that the precedent was set, and all the markers and signposts were there showing that this is what would happen, because we have declining foreign exchange earnings and therefore declining foreign exchange revenues, and you are not doing anything to boost other sectors sufficiently to make up the shortfall.
Right.
In
And
addition,
how can
the
you
government's
go
policy,
go go
just
ahead?
let me just finish. In addition to this, the government's policy in terms of maintaining the fixed exchange rate has also contributed to it because, of course, you are not allowing free market forces to determine the supply and demand. You are keeping the rate pegged at this basically what is like a fixed floating rate, or a managed float. That's what they call it, a managed floating rate. All right. And that again is something that, really and truly, the IMF has spoken out against. But of course, for, I guess, political reasons and political expediency, it is clear that no government in Trinidad and Tobago wants to be the one to say, well, look, we had to do a devaluation, because they think that a devaluation is going to be basically a political death knell for them. All right. So you have all these factors in the mix, and then now you have the scenarios where the central bank, the commercial banks, are now putting further restrictions on the availability of foreign exchange, even what you may have in your account at the bank. So, that now makes it even crazier. So, what are you asking? That people go back to hiding money in their mattress and under their pillows and, under their beds? Is it that we are going back to?
Understood. And so, one of the key questions that persons are asking, specifically in the business community, is that Christmas is coming. And that's when a lot of persons see a huge uptick in sales, especially when it comes to import sales. How can you see this Forex situation in Trinidad and Tobago having a negative impact on business for Christmas?
Well, obviously, because if it is that people are not able to purchase the goods that they are importing or pay for them in a timely manner, then obviously there will be less available to sell. Some businesses are going to suffer, particularly if they rely on a lot of imports. There are lots of I know small business persons who, they do lots of imports from, companies like Shane and, others overseas. There are some people who import from Amazon or whoever. So the reality is that you are going to see some, particularly the smaller business persons, suffering because, people had actually resorted to using the credit cards as their source of the forex, because when you go into the banks directly, it's so difficult to get the foreign exchange that people were basically using their credit cards and then topping it back up in TT. So therefore, you use the US allocation on your credit card and top it back up in TT. But when the banks keep reducing the availability of that US allocation on your credit card, then of course it limits your ability to use this as a mechanism to obtain foreign exchange. So it is going to be critical. And then you add to that the challenges and difficulties at the port, and the onerous fees and tariffs that they charge you, when you're coming through the ports. So it really creates a climate that almost, it's like it's designed to stifle and frustrate business and business persons more than facilitate it. And that is what I find so difficult to comprehend, because on the one hand you have the government saying, well, we want to develop the country, we want to develop business, we want to develop these things, but yet still you have so many restrictions and frustrations and obstacles and hurdles. You ask yourself then, is it that you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth? Because if you really want to develop and encourage and facilitate business, then you have to make it easier. You have to facilitate the ease of doing business. We are one of the most difficult countries in the world to do business in, because there are so many restrictions and so much red tape. And, you go to companies registry, it's a whole, run around all the time. You go to legal affairs, look at the situation even now with the, Registrar General's Department in Tobago. That imbroglio and standoff has not yet ended. So therefore, just simply registering certain documents, you're getting such a headache. So, we really have to ask ourselves, is this the way we want to develop a nation, particularly if you want to talk about getting towards first world standards?
Understood. And is it a situation where you believe that a number of local businesses should now turn towards having those online platforms for their business, taking the credit card payments and setting up payment systems that are outside of Trinidad and Tobago? Let's say, for instance, utilizing systems like PayPal and other online banks like TransferWise to receive foreign currency, then holding that foreign currency outside of Trinidad and Tobago, allowing them to have an alternative means of access to US dollars and other
Well, I
foreign
mean, if that
currencies.
is one solution, I think, yes, people will start looking at those as options. And let me tell you this, it is so much easier to open a bank account in other countries than it is in your own country of Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, I had the experience earlier this year where a friend, of mine, I was able to arrange for her to go into a US bank, and within 30 minutes, she walked out of that bank with three brand new accounts opened in the US. Within 30 minutes, they didn't know her. She doesn't live in the US. She's not a citizen. She's not even a resident. She was just there on vacation. And the greatest part of it, she did not have to put 1 cent to open any of the accounts. They opened all the accounts and they told her, no, 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 there's no need to put any money right now. Whenever you need to, you would deposit as you see fit. Imagine that in 30 minutes. In Trinidad and Tobago, sometimes you take 30 weeks and you still can't get one account opened. They keep sending you back. They want this, they want that, they want, I mean, they want to know, from your parents, this, that, the other. You have to get your landlord to send this. You have to get this. You have to get your light bill. You have to get proof of address. You have to get all these the two forms of ID. You have to get, and I mean, and they just keep sending you back over and over and over again. And worse yet, if it's a business account you want to open, man, you have to produce, 3 years of audited accounts. I mean, the restrictions and hurdles and obstacles that they put in your way, they are beyond belief. It's almost as if it's deliberately designed to frustrate you out of doing business.
Now, the Minister for Finance, he indicated that floating the currency or allowing it to fluctuate will raise the cost of living for persons who are already living beneath the recommended standard. Do you agree with him saying this?
Well, no, no, he didn't say float in it. What he said is if you allow the free market forces, so in other words, if you remove the managed float, so if you remove the restrictions that are there in place now by the central bank, right, which gives it the managed float, so therefore you allow free market forces. What he's saying basically is that the prices will skyrocket. Basically, I think they're suggesting that it will first shoot up to maybe about 10 to 1 in terms of the exchange rate. And he says, accordingly, you will see inflation taking place in the domestic market because of the price that you will now have to pay for US currency. So, I mean, there is some logic to that, and one can understand that argument. But I mean, again, the question is then what is the government doing as a solution? We of the Tobago Business Chamber have proposed at least one immediate solution that can take place, and the central government can implement that tomorrow. We have said remove and repeal the Foreign Investment Act. The Foreign Investment Act is a piece of legislation which came into force around 2007, 2008. And what it has done, it has restricted and crippled and totally dried up all direct foreign investment into Tobago because they have put in so many hurdles, so many, hoops you have to jump through, so many obstacles in that legislation that in the 16 or so years of its existence, there has not been even to say one successful application per year. Not even one successful application per year. So therefore, it's not even 16 successful applications you could point to since the legislation has been in place. So therefore, basically, you have stopped all direct foreign investment. Whereas all the other small islands of the Caribbean are rolling out the red carpet for investors. They are implementing programs. Look at Dominica. They have their citizenship by investment program. They have other programs inviting investors, encouraging investors. They have arrangements with foreign governments. For direct foreign investment. We are not doing that. Instead, we are happily laughing and chasing away investors and then keeping this stupid legislation on the books. And I make no apologies for describing it that way because it serves absolutely no useful purpose except to deprive us of much needed foreign exchange and direct foreign investment.
Why do you think that this outdated legislation still exists?
I think it's just political reasons. You need to ask the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister. They will be the ones to answer that. But it seems to me to clearly just be political reasons why they keep that on the books. If you look back
Unders-
at this of it, that might explain why.
Understood. Now we're going to take a quick break and we're going to return very soon as we chat about the Tobago Crime Stopper Unit. Guys, we're going to take a quick break here and we'll be back right after this. See you soon.